So welcome. Thanks for joining us on this last of the session of 4 certification group mentoring series we've been having. As we get to the last gathering, there's just a small group of us here because I realized that there's a conflict with an immersion that starts tonight. Conflicts and scheduling. So hopefully we can have a little chat about the path of meditation, and the document that I've just opened, that those of you who are here have just opened, is called, it may be called the Foundational Philosophies of Yoga. I sent that to everyone in this group as an attachment. We've just discovered that this document lives in the level 1 manual as well. So in chapter 13 in the level 1 manual, and page 9 is the reference that we found for this latest version of the manual. Sometimes the paging is a little bit different. And in that document, in the level 1 manual, this document is called the Foundational Philosophies of Yoga Nidra. Now, Yoga Nidra is a more recent, Yoga Nidra didn't come from Sankhya or Patanjali or Advaita, but from this more recent understanding of Kashmir Shaivism, where the tantric teachings live.
Okay.
So, so if you pull that document up, maybe we can just take a little peek through here. And those of you who are here, please just pop in and say, I don't understand that, because if you're not understanding it, then I'm not saying it well enough. So better to get things clarified. 4 perspectives for understanding truth. So if we think of this quest of meditation, why would we meditate? I mean, right now in the world that we live in, what we hear is, oh, everybody should meditate. It's good for your mental health. It's good to relax. It's good to help you sleep. It's good to manage difficult emotions, and so on and so on. So we kind of, a lot of the what's talked about in meditation has to do with the benefits for our life. But meditation really began as a search for the truth, a search for something that answers the questions: who am I? What is the purpose of this? Where did I come from? Why am I here? So we could call that a searching for the truth. As I'm saying this, and if it's possible, if you've got your manual there, it might be helpful to bring up your path of meditation document as well. I'm not going to send that to the group because that's something that is definitely available in your manuals. I'm going to see if I can pop that up so that I can refer to that as well. So we have 2 versions of this path of meditation, the one that is primarily English and one that has the Sanskrit words in it. So either one. Now I'm going to try to figure out how to open a separate window so that I can see 2 documents. This is not my strong point, folks. So bear with me here. Those of you who are here, the path of meditation, do you like using the English version or the Sanskrit version, or do you have a preference? No preference. Okay.
Yeah, I have no preference. But I relate with you about the skill of the techie stuff is not my strong suit.
Right. Funny. We're generally yoga meditation teachers. That doesn't mean that we're great at, we're not IT people. Not that we can't learn. We just learn what we can, minimum that we have to deal with. Okay, so I'm going to refer to both of these, if I can, at the same time. So if we consider at its base that the Why were people brought to meditation? Meditation is just a word that we have created to say, I'm looking for the truth. This document, so I'm going to go back and forth between these documents. The document that we have called The Path of Meditation, I'm going to refer to the English words. We number this from the bottom up in the version that we have. That doesn't mean that it has to be from the bottom up. But how do we begin to find the truth? Well, right now, if we're looking for information, we'll probably Google something, and then we get other people's information, opinions, research on whatever question we're looking for. But if we want to find our own truth, then we notice where we are and what's truthful for us. So we just observe, don't we? You know, we observe the world, we observe ourselves. And how do we do this? We do this with our senses. What do we see? What do we hear? What do we taste? What do we smell? What do we feel? So this, to me, this process of discovering truth comes by where we begin our practice, by opening our senses and then feeling ourselves and feeling the world around us.
I'm gonna say is that practicing inner resource, at least I feel from my own practice, I feel that as I tap into my inner resource, I feel closer to truth. I don't know if that's true for anyone else.
That's a great comment, Sherry. Yeah, it's a great comment. So when you look at the Path of Meditation document that we're working from, it begins with steps 1 to 3, the foundational practices that we call the Sankalpa. What is my inner resource? What's my heartfelt desire? What is my intention? And even below that, I believe, I can't actually see this in my document. Let's see if I can pull it up. That's not even step 1. Step 1 is, can somebody see that step 1?
Welcome, experience the life force that has given birth to every atom, molecule, and cell in the body.
Okay. So it sounds simple, right? Feel this. It actually sounds really lofty to me. What does it really mean? It just means feel yourself. You're alive. You're here. So there is, I mean, we just take it for granted, but there is a feeling of I am alive. So that really is our first step. It's not always something that we particularly mention in our practices, but it's here anyway. So it's simply acknowledging that. And then these steps of the Sankalpa, what brought you here? What's your intention? This to me is like going into the grocery store with a list. Why am I here? What am I looking for? And without an intention, we could just wander around in there and pick up things that look nice, which is totally fine. But when it comes to our meditation, there's a reason to have that strong intention. Why are you here and not doing something else? And that will bring us back, acknowledging that we do have an intention. Our inner resource does give us access to that feeling of safety, ease, okayness, wellness. This is a piece that was not a part of, it's not a part that's included in many meditation practices, this inner resource. this is something that we have added to the practice of irest because it's so incredibly valuable in the world that we live in, because we live in an unsafe world, and so many people don't have that feeling of ground or safety. As you begin to work with people in the world in various settings, you will likely begin to find that inner resource, as it is for Sherry, is not only a vital piece to our well-being and to making life an easier place to be, is to be able to access that, but it also can give us direct access to that feeling of, I'm more than this, that connection to everything. So here I am bouncing around, not a big surprise, because that tends to be what my brain does. And I'm not particularly, creating this as a lecture for you people. I'm hoping this is more of a discussion. We also know the value of heartfelt desire. It's something that I continue to explore in my teaching and for myself. Touched on this some point in our conversations, but heartfelt desire can be our life's mission, our life's goal. Why are we here? Or it can simply be connecting to that part of ourselves that we know to be true, that we may have forgotten. What are my unique qualities? Who am I when I'm at my best? That's one of my favorite questions in order to tease out this heartfelt desire. So I hope that this becomes a valuable journey for you. For some people, heartfelt desires, I don't, like it was for myself, I'm not really sure. I don't really get the instructions that are written in the manual. So keep going, keep exploring for yourself and with the people that you're working with to see. Yes, please.
I really like that phrase you just said, because it's not, I don't remember it being in the scripts, but who am I when I'm at my best? That's a great phrase that I think could work with some of my clients.
Definitely. Yeah. Like you, I work with a lot of people who are experiencing tremendous difficulty in their life, whether that's trauma or injury or accidents or major compromise in their bodies situation. And what tends to happen is that they lose touch with the good parts of themselves because they get identified and so wrapped up, enmeshed in being an illness or an injury or a compromised state that I forget who I am. Just as a really poignant example, I'm working with a woman right now who's been struggling with endometriosis. If you know anyone in this situation, it can be completely debilitating and consuming. She's in her mid-30s. When I asked her, do you remember a time when you felt complete, whole, really being yourself, the fullness of yourself? And can you describe what that was like? And she said she had to go back to remembering when she was 12 years old. Lost that part of herself. And then she described, I was carefree and happy and spontaneous, and she could describe that. So those were the words that we began to work with. Okay, I didn't have to say heartfelt, heartfelt desire. It was just, those are the qualities of you when you're, I like the word shining, when you're shining. So yes, definitely when people have been compromised for a long period of time, it can take a long time. It can take a while of exploring for them to find and remember what it felt like to feel good. So these 4 steps at the bottom of the path of meditation, we have added to the meditation practice, to this to this journey of seeking for the truth. Now, what I love about that phrase, that truth seeking, is that if you go to the little creatures, the little symbols up the left side of the path of meditation, these are from the Zen tradition. These are, I think they're called the ox herding pictures from the Zen tradition, which is also a non-dual tradition or teaching. And this, to me, these pictures helped me understand what is meditation. Well, there's a curiosity. There's a curiosity that's saying, what is real? What is, very simply, looking for the truth. Okay. Every religion, every philosophy, I'm not a philosopher or a religious expert or scholar at all, but these are all coming from the same question. What is the truth? What is life? Then we step up to the next line in the path of meditation is the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, space. We know that everything, ourselves and everything in the world, is made up of these elements. From here, from number 5 upward, this path of meditation comes from the tattvas, which comes from the Shiva Sutras. So these are the elements that we're made up of. You may have experienced a meditation in which you're invited to explore these elements as a felt sense in your body, sense of earth, of water, of fire, of air, of space. They all have different qualities to them. The next, and when you look to the left of that, we're welcoming the body, because the body is composed of all of these elements. The next layer in this takes us to our senses. From 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, we're starting to orient to our ability to sense with all of these different senses. And this is in our irest practice. Open your senses, feel what you feel. The more time we take with each of these senses, the more becomes available to us. If you look at the little ox herding pictures on the left, after we acknowledge that there's a searching for the truth, that might be our intention, then we begin to find footprints, or we begin to discover the world around us by sensing. In our practice of yoga or body sensing movement, if you've taken the Move, Breathe, Rest series, we use movement, and the practice of yoga was designed to sensitize the body in order to feel more. Because this is what our practice is doing. We're feeling. At the very simplest, meditation is feeling. Irest is feeling. As we move up, as we move up this path of meditation, which we have written from the bottom up, we move from the grosser aspects of feeling our physical bodies to feeling the more subtle aspects: energy, emotion, thoughts, feelings, qualities. So you can start to see those show up from number 15 up to 23. Okay, we start to notice these things in the world. Now, I've got the English version of this document open, but there's so many layers in this. This is what can make it quite complicated, because because we've brought together so many different elements and teachings into this document. But if you do have the Sanskrit version open there, up the left bar in black type, what you'll find is the foundational teachings of yoga. Sankhya. Sankhya was interested in how do we get information from the world when we're not searching Google. Okay. So how do we get this information about the world? Through our senses, through what people tell us, which is, there's your Google, through direct perception, through inferred perception. Oh, I see smoke, so there must be fire over there. Through reading, listening to, speaking to experts, and getting essentially secondhand information. And then, let me see, in the path of meditation assignment, oh, jeepers, I keep clicking on things and then losing them. Then we come to the discernment of the seer and what is seen. Somebody has that one open. If one of you has that open, can you just refer to the number of that? And if you've got it open, or if you're familiar with it, the Sanskrit words for this seer and seen. Either one of you?
25, 24, Purusha and Prakriti.
Yes. Yes. Familiar words or unfamiliar?
Familiar.
Good.
Familiar. Yes.
Good.
Although I wouldn't know if I weren't looking at it, which was which.
You know what? Purusha is you. It's got two U's. That's how just a really simple learning tool that I made up for myself. Purusha is the you that doesn't change. The you, and it's got two U's. Vritti is everything that changes. Therefore, Purusha is the seer. Prakriti is everything that's seen. So if you were to ask yourself, if somebody were to say, where are you? Where are you? And I don't mean where is your body in space right now, because you're sitting in your office or your living room. But where in you do you experience this sense of being a me? How would you describe, where am I? In fact, if we ask a 2-year-old that question, where are you? Where do they point? Right here, I'm here. And generally, it's not this in our culture. It's, I'm here. This is me. And we've taught them that. This is me. And in meditation, if we just feel that sense of, where am I? Who am I? There is kind of this sense of it, of me being this center of the chest, kind of heart area, which is interesting. You know, we could call it the heart chakra. And, you know, if we're familiar with the 7 chakras, of which there are many more apparently minor chakras along this line, but there's a minor chakra just below the heart chakra that we call the ahamkara chakra, which we feel or experience as the seat, S-E-A-T, the home of the I thought. This feeling of I that bubbles up from this place. So it's, again, this is not absolute truth. This is, I consider this as an invitation to feel, when you feel a sense of I or me, and this is where You know, if I'm thinking about me, this is where my hand goes because that's where I feel me to be. When that feeling of I or me comes up, you might sense it as a sensation that bubbles up just from below the heart. So you, me, this you-ness of me, Purusha, the seer, that which is perceiving the world, witnessing the world. Has that seer, that witness of you that knows you and has known you since birth, or we could say even before, is that you that you remember yourself to be from your earliest memory of being you? Is it the same as right now, 40, 50, 60, 70 years later? Are you the same you?
Yes and no.
What's the same? Yeah.
Well,
What is
that's
the
the question, isn't it? What is
Yeah.
the same? It's
What's the
Purusha's.
same?
The quality of Purusha is the same, but my ego sense of self is not the same.
Yep, could be.
Because as I'm studying Purusha from the first some Karika Samkhya Karika,
Yeah.
which is a very difficult document, by the way.
Go lightly.
uh, yeah, I'm still in the first 5 pages, and it's been like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But the way Purusha is talked about. It's almost like there's something of universal nature of Purusha, but yet we experience it as well. I'm not sure if I'm finding the right words to describe it, but
Seeing, observing, witnessing is something we all do. We could even say we were maybe born for that, to experience the world around us. So in that way, there's a universality of it, perhaps. There's a sameness to it. What's interesting about Sankhya is that they believe that each of our Purushas are separate from each other.
wow.
There's the me seer and there's the you seer. But when I sit with you, particularly in meditation, if we do a dyad sitting, does it feel like your seer is different than mine? Seer. And this takes us back to your answer. Is the you that was you when you were 3 years old, tugging on your mother's skirt or hiding or whatever she was doing? Is that you still the you that's you now? And the yes answer is the seeing aspect was the same, the witnessing, the observing aspect. And the underlying qualities were the same. Now, she's learned a lot. She's had a lot of experiences by now. They have changed in that there's more of a body of experience now. But the watching quality is still there. It's the same you. So that's the seeing, the unchanging is what hasn't changed, is the seeing quality, the witnessing quality. Even though experiences have informed our decisions and our actions and so on. The you, and this is, I'm fascinated by the exploration of what hasn't changed, even though I look in the mirror and she doesn't look the same. But when you feel it from the inside, it doesn't look like what you see in the mirror. It still looks like it's 7 years old, or feels like it's 7 years old, or however old it was, even though there's more experience, maturity, learning, and so on at this point. So I'm kind of playing with truly, I hope that I wouldn't go out into the world and teach in this sort of open way, which is, I hope, just an interesting discussion. But I'm curious about, how do we know that part of ourselves that hasn't changed? Through our own observation. Because when I feel her at 3 years old, she's still me. She's still there. And actually, she's still got the same qualities, even though her experience has matured and changed and grown in some cases.
That
But she's still
resonates.
that person. And that's sort of what I was talking about with that heartfelt desires. Oh yeah, that person that I was when I was 12. Even though she might have had confusing times and disappointing times in her life, but the qualities of her are still here.
I guess
Okay.
I'm getting a little tripped up with the phrase heartfelt desire. If if it, as you're describing the experience of unchanging is connected to that heartfelt desire, I'm like, is it a desire? Or is it the desire to connect with that deeper part of ourselves?
Good. Great questions. And keep asking, because for me, the exploration of heartfelt desire is something that's longing to be expressed through us that's already there.
Okay. I
So
remember
the
that
desire,
teaching. Yeah.
so the desire is a desire for something that's already here. We might call it a longing or a seeking, right down at the beginning of the path of meditation. Why am I here? I'm curious. Desire isn't a desire for something that I don't have. It's a desire for something I already am, which is a longing to connect with myself at my wholeness, my fullness. But it can feel like a longing or a wanting or a desire. How's that?
Excellent.
Susan, I'd like to hear, what's your response to that?
I get tripped up a little because I guess I come from before irest Vipassana background, and the whole idea of desires, yearnings, it's like that stuff you're supposed to let go of.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, I can still come up with a desire when I do irest, but I think it's kind of where I'm headed is beyond that.
Is beyond the desire. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So as you go through the reading from each of the foundational teachings, you'll find, in at least if you're in, depending on what you're reading, in the Advaitin section, desire is something to be exactly what you're saying, to be ignored or pushed away, or don't get caught into that trap of desire. But as we come to the Kashmir Shaivism teachings, they're saying, go into your desire. What is it you're really longing for? Because as we dive into it, we recognize that it isn't something I am longing for. It's actually something that life is pulling me towards. It's actually like life. And here we are. Of course, we get tripped up. So, I'm hearing you both say tripped up. We should, because our mind cannot figure this out. But who we are is longing to be expressed out of us. And that is the desire we're trying to tap into. When I'm free, which in some way we all are longing for, or we could say, I just want to be. That's life saying you want, it's like life pulling you to connect with the fact that you're already free. And when you are free, then who can you be? When we give up ideas of who I should be and who all of these labels. We spent a long time returning over and over in the October retreat to these labels that we take ourselves to be. I should be kind. I should be hardworking. I should be compassionate. I should be helpful in the world. I should be, and then put on top of that, I should be a good girl. I should be quiet. I should be seen and not heard. All of these, whatever these, I should be nice. I shouldn't be bossy. All of this stuff. When that drops away, all the labels and the shoulds fall away, and I can just be me. Then I'm free. And I wouldn't call it a desire. I would call it more of a heart longing. And it's not even the little me that's longing it. It's life longing it for me. This is why you were built, is to be this. And how do I connect to that? So it's a slightly different way of saying desire. And yet for some, you may have heard this one too, is we could call it the heartfelt mission. What is your mission? What are you called to do in the world? And it might be to pick up that the word I'm looking for is some people are really clear on, this is my goal. This is what I need to do. I'm thinking pick up that flag and soldier on into the world with that. If my mission is to save the whales, then that's your mission. So this is looking a little broader than that. Who am I? Am I the person that's at the front of that, whatever that thing is, or is my role a little different in the world? And the desire helps us connect with that which is already in us and says yes to that. It's tricky.
I experience it as super subtle. So subtle. It's like so subtle.
And yet it's clear because it's always been here.
Yeah.
So this is where I encourage people to look back a decade, look back 2, look back 3, because whoever it is that you are, you've always been it. So it's like, where were your interests? What were you doing? What role did you play then? Were you by yourself? Were you with a group? Those kind of tendencies stay with us. I think I mentioned last week, I've just spent a week in my birth home, my mother's home of 70 years. We just sold and cleared out. So it was really a time for my siblings and I to go back and say, oh, remember this, remember this, remember this. And to have intense time with, siblings like that. What I noticed was, oh yeah, I know, I can now more clearly see what my role was in the family, of bringing people together, of communicating, of sitting back, of, less of the in control and more of the, bringing people together and asking questions and hearing. And here I am 60 years later, oh yeah, still that role. That's because that's who I am. So these pieces are always with us. So keep, go back and think, wow, what did you do that made you feel alive, that felt very comfortable to you? And these can give us pointers into this, who we are. But even heartfelt desire is pointing us to something that's the relative me in the world, because the absolute me is beyond all of that. As we get into these higher levels of the path of meditation and into the subtler aspect of myself as Purusha, then the qualities, even those qualities of who you are, your tendencies, your strengths, your personalities, slide away, and we discover ourselves just as light. And light being prana or energy or beingness or awareness or whatever words, but I'm just this shining being that is truly not separate from everything around. And that takes us beyond the personalness of heartfelt desire, or even beyond inner resource in a way. And as you've probably heard, because we say it a lot, that beingness or essential nature is the ultimate heartfelt desire, is the ultimate inner resource, is the ultimate intention for us, we could maybe say, of being here. Now, I think I've gone a little bit diffuse and away from sort of this linearness of this, but what would be helpful now? Take a look at, I've got path of meditation on one side. I've got these foundational philosophies. So if we've clarified the difference between Purusha and Prakriti, Purusha being the unchanging, Prakriti being everything that changes, what's great about this foundational philosophies comparison chart is that these give us a really clear transition from Sankhya through Patanjali, through Advaita, and into the non-dual, the pure non-dual teachings of Kashmir Shaivism, and how they see Purusha, how they see Prakriti. What the difference between dual and non-dual are. And we've added a few more elements as we've talked about this today. Advaita sees desire as something we should dismiss, whereas Kashmir Shaivism can see desire as something that we can dive into and find our true nature. You'll see in the bottom right corner of the foundational teachings comparison chart that the Kashmir Shaivism teachings introduce the 37-step map of meditation, which we call the path of meditation now. Yes. 37-step map of meditation that incorporates the views of Sankhya, Patanjali, and Advaita. Okay, so that's where this map came from. And then we continually explore, and particularly on meditation retreat, invite discussion around, is this how you experience this step? How can we best codify this so that it's a useful document for people who are coming to meditation, who are saying, what is meditation anyway? That's why this is here. Or for those who have studied Patanjali or have studied Advaita and have said, well, how does this fit in with irest? both of these documents will help to answer that question.
Do you happen to know how old this map is?
In years, I don't know, but the Kashmir teachings, and this is something you can look up if you're interested. Certainly, this should be fairly readily available information, but we're talking a few thousand years instead of many. So no, I can't tell you within a few thousand what that is, but
I actually come from a Kashmir Shvaism background. That's
yeah.
how I entered meditation.
Yeah.
And it was through the spacing on the name of the guru, but the the lineage of Siddha Yoga.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's how that was my entry. Well, that's not the first entry level to meditation was actually Zen Buddhism meditation, but then I had someone that took me to the ashram in New York, and I was introduced to that lineage where the philosophies of Kashmir Shvaism was written about, and yeah. So I don't know what would be helpful to answer your question. What would be helpful right now? I don't know, because it's just I have never seen this map, but when I saw the map during the level 1 training, I was like, oh my God, someone wrote it down. Like, I've never seen it written down before like this, but this was all familiar.
Good. And the reason we want you as irest teachers to have a cursory understanding of this is so that if you do have people like Sherry coming to your class saying, well, how does this fit with, I've studied this, how does this fit? We have a basic understanding of it does fit. Yes, this has led to this, has led to this. So we didn't just pull this out of the air and create it. This has come from years of seekers interested in finding the truth.
I have a question.
Yes.
Kirsten, it's funny because I Kashmir Shvaism was how I entered my meditation practice deepened, but then I also not in the order that the practices are introduced in this nice flow chart. It's not how I went. It was like here and then there. So I was introduced as Kashmir Shvaism first, then went back and studied the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, and then Advaita, and then right now I'm looking at the Samkhya through irest. And so is it safe? I mean, was it accurate to say that there's as this chart of foundational practices of Yoga Nidra, is it like moving through the map of meditation? Is it like moving up from the bottom up? So like Samkhya is kind of like the first, I don't know, 10-ish or so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. So you take that chart and you turn it on its side and you've got the path of meditation. That's exactly how it goes. And if you look up the left, if you look at the path of meditation, the black bar up the left side, if you have the Sanskrit version, it shows you there. Sankhya is the first 1, 2, step 1, 2, step 25. So is Patanjali, Sankhya Patanjali, up to 25. The final realization of Sankhya Patanjali is knowing yourself as the seer. And the seer word, Susan, is?
Oh, Purusha.
Yes, ma'am. Nailed it. Okay, and Purusha is number 25, knowing yourself as the seer. Okay, Patanjali gives us lots of experiments. The Eightfold Path of Patanjali, are you familiar with this? Okay, so they're giving you experiments. Experiments to discover yourself as the witness. Sankhya is just Sankhya is the philosophy that says this is the case. Patanjali says this is how to experience this for yourself. Knowing yourself, the seer, you, the unchanging, as separate from Prakriti, which is everything that changes around you. Those two are separate. That's how Patanjali and Sankhya see them. And then the seekers kept sitting with, I am separate from that. I am separate from that. I am separate from that. What am I? What am I? Who am I? When I keep feeling into I, the whole thing breaks apart and dissolves, and there is no I. And now the I is not separate from that which surrounds it. You could say surrounds it. If I had a location in the heart or just below the heart, which is kind of a concept, but that's kind of what it feels like. But as we keep feeling that, it breaks open. And you may have had moments of this, particularly the practice of gazing with another or meditating with another, just in silence. There may be a moment when it feels like there's no separation. I don't know if I'm there or here. I can't feel the edges of me. I can't feel where I stop and the world begins. And now the gig's up. There is no separation or difference or two between me and that. And that's where Advaita has taken this another step further beyond where Patanjali said, that's it. Now, as soon as you recognize that, there's no more suffering. That's it, until Advaita recognized, hang on, there's more. So when you look up the left side of the path of meditation, you see Advaita taking us up to the level of about 32, 33, and 34. And that's where that philosophy kind of stopped. I'm separate from this. I'm not separate from this. The object subject difference, the me and that. I am this. You know, these get to be pretty subtle questions. And subtle explorations of feeling, because they're not intellectual questions, they're feeling questions. And then what I love on the path of meditation in this ox herding circles is the blank circle. Isn't that great? Do you know that feeling? Even for a moment, you know, when everything is just like, oh, there's no me, there's no world, there's no difference, there's no distinction, there just is. And then that can blip in and out, of course. And that's where the word stabilizing, and then above that, stabilized. if it's helpful, when over the years that I've worked with this document, there's so many pieces in here. It might be helpful to just highlight one piece for yourself. Just take those, just go column by column, but more and more will, I don't know how I can describe how this path more words start to make sense over time. But that stabilizing self-recognition at numbers 35, 36, and above it, stabilized. Stabilizing, and underneath that one, in the next row down, 32, 33, 34, unstable. So I know, because I felt it, this sense of me being more than this, or not separate from this. And it blips in and it blips out and it blips in. And then it starts to be a little more in the foreground. Like I know that more, but I still forget. It reveals and it hides. And then it gets really subtle. You know, if we thought some of these other aspects were subtle, these are super subtle. The 31 and upward to what we now have as 38, I put these on the 20-30 year meditation. You know, that 10,000 hours, the Malcolm Gladwell thing about 10,000 hours to become an expert at something. These are in the 10,000 hour range, which happens quicker than you think. That this stabilizing of, oh yeah, that's there. But these aren't things that we can describe. We try to put words to them. We try to put descriptions to them, but they're so subtle that we can't grasp it. And that's why the Kashmir Shaivism books are almost like reading poetry, aren't they? Because they're trying to point to something that's
beyond words.
Say that again.
That's beyond words.
That's
the realm of words.
Exactly. And that's why we use poetry.
Yeah. I actually had it was kind of like a joke, but it's also my truth. As you were describing the stabilizing, the movement between stable and unstabilized self and knowing of self, I was going to make the joke that it's like when you walk in a room and you're like, why did I walk in here? Like, what? Why am I here? Why am I in this room? And I could either get really bent out of shape about how I forgot why I'm here and get upset about, like, why am I here? Or I could be like, oh, well, it's gone. I have no idea. How funny that I forgot. Like, whatever. Like, I guess it's just a brain fart. It's just what it is. And find some kind of carefreeness about it.
Right. Right.
Like it's a blank, like just accepting that I'm totally blank. I have the blank circle. Like, I don't know. It's just blank. It's a blank space.
And instead of it being, there's something clearly wrong here, just taking this as a moment of delight. Oh, here I am. There's a lovely piece that comes from the Pratyabhijna Hridayan that reminds us that we aren't the ones remembering and we aren't the ones forgetting. So we have this phrase that we use that says, oh, careful what you wish for, careful what you think. And, oh, I should have, we tend to think that we're responsible for what we don't think of. Oh, I should have thought of that. Are you responsible for what you think of or what you don't think of? Are you responsible for what you forget? We tend to think we're responsible.
We're socialized to think we're responsible.
Socialized. We're taught to think we're responsible. When the truth is, Sherry, you don't have a clue. I don't have
no idea.
I don't have a clue. And that is the truth.
In this moment, I have no idea.
No. And that, and when, and from the Pratyabhijna Harityam, the description is that it's the divine remembering us. And again, divine, the true nature, essential nature, remembers us, forgets us, pulls us. It's pulling us. That same longing. Where does longing come from? It comes from the mystery. It pulls us. It remembers us. It remembers us to ourselves. I remember this self-recognition. Is it me remembering? Is it me finding that, or did it find me? And when it forgets, when I forget who I am, who my essential nature is, and I get caught in the stuff of life and I start to feel limited and I don't know enough and I don't have enough and all of those kanchukas, that forgetting is coming from the same source that the remembering came from, which is outside of us. Outside of us, inside of us, beyond the personal me that we are socialized to believe is our responsibility. When it's just this mystery playing, I'm here, I'm not. I'm here, I'm not. And there's the lightness that comes. Don't worry about it. It's all okay. That's a relief. And if we go back in the teachings, and it doesn't really matter what order you know, the order of I learned this first, I didn't learn this, because in the final teachings that we're coming from, the Kashmir teachings, all of that's included in this. But when I read Patanjali, what I see it as, when I first studied Patanjali, it felt like you need to do this, you need to do this, don't do this, try some of this, do this. It felt like the eight commandments of Patanjali. If you do all these things, then you'll get something.
Yeah.
Whereas the Kashmir teachings are saying, there's nothing you need to do. You're already here. That doesn't mean there isn't discipline and practice and engagement and curiosity and what we call meditation that will help the clarity, or as I just said, you know, that 10,000 hours of meditation, 20 years of meditation gets us something. But then we realize that that's something that we're trying to get was never not there. I didn't just attain it. It was always there. I just saw it, felt it, recognized it. So tricky, isn't it? So if you're going to teach meditation, or if you are working with people and the question comes up, what is meditation? How do you take this path of meditation document, 38 now steps, and turn it into a simple description? What happens when we meditate? You know, first we feel ourselves as this gross physical body, and then we begin to feel the subtler aspects of ourselves. And as we keep feeling subtler aspects, we have access to even more subtle. And then we begin to feel the blank circle of, wow, this. Some people, one of the questions in the assignment, the Path of Meditation assignment, there's a lot of fairly simple questions. Name the 5 elements. What's the final understanding of Patanjali? You know, these kinds of questions. Most of these you can get from these 2 documents, maybe a bit of research on your own. One of the questions is take this 38-page map of meditation and make it simple in a way that you could describe to people what is meditation and what are the potential outcomes of this exploration of curiosity. So some people have so create your own version of the map, simplified version. So here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 7 different ways of describing every step in the version that we have. Can you simplify it down to, and how can I describe this? Some people have created a visual image. You know, first we feel the body and then we feel subtler. It might feel like it would be more appropriate if this were concentric circles or spheres or something. We start by feeling the body and then we feel these subtler pieces. So some people have made a drawing or a conceptualization of the path of meditation in that way. Some people like to come from, we start at the top and move down, or we start at the top and we move out. But how it might be images, it might be colors, it might be, had somebody describe this as a map, like a treasure map, and actually created a treasure map. Oh yeah, there's that version. And that's in the, is that in the manual or is that in the
Oh, my mic's on, sorry. I think it's in the it's in my level 2 manual. And I think it's also in the free workbook, I think.
That's what I was thinking. I think
Yeah.
I think it's in the workbook that you can use to teach from. So yeah, that gives another way of.
Yeah, when you said concentric circles, I was like, oh, I think you guys made this already.
So that certainly might be a simpler version, but so spend some time with the map. You might want to create several photocopies of the map and highlight it in different ways for yourself so that you can see it more clearly instead of it being so complicated. You can read the words from the Foundational Teachings comparison chart. You can, and often this assignment is done towards the end of certification. Several people have commented after the fact that the readings help them to understand the path of meditation. Remember, don't take too deep a dive into any of the readings. Don't go in detail in Sankhya because it's heavy, thick, and challenging. If you can get what the comparison chart is telling you, you know, what's the perspective? What are Purusha, how are Purusha Prakriti seen? What's from their perspective? What is the source of suffering? And what are the major concepts that are introduced here? That's enough. And then read the reading from that perspective. See how it fits in with that to help inform you. I promise you, when you spend a year or so with this, that doesn't mean you have to understand it, everything that's written in the path of meditation. But as you spend time with it, it will become less cumbersome and start to make a little more. Okay, that was an interesting discussion that I had no idea was going to come.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So see how you do with that. I'm sending you off into your own study now. I will share
Okay.
this recording, and I will share those of you who have asked to share contact information and would like to work together. If you'd like to work independently and on your own, that's absolutely great. And there's no need to connect with each other, but I hope you do, if that's something that you feel is going to be helpful to you. Connect with each other. Keep going. I promise things will get clearer. It just happens in spite of us. Happy to be with you folks. Anything before we wrap up that you would like clarified?
I did have.
I feel like I've kind of stirred up the pond, not necessarily made it clearer. I think I've added the mud. Yes, is there something?
I wondered, and it was wondering maybe it could be answered with my mentor, if it's not a brief answer, but where does the Bhagavad Gita fit? Is it with the kind of in the Patanjali or
I don't know.
I don't know.
But your mentor may be able to answer that. How it fits in here. I don't know. I don't know. And I don't know. Who are you working with?
Karen Solstice.
Yeah, she may be able to. She might be able to give you some more information on that.
Yeah. Because that text has been interesting with working with the military.
Absolutely, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I wouldn't be surprised if she had used it. But no, this is not an area that I resisted the foundational teachings. I fought, I railed against it. And then in spite of all my railing and protesting, it began to come together. And this is why I really want the very, very simple, give me the guts of this. And that's how I approach this. Certainly every one of the mentors has their own relationship with this. So you'll get a different perspective from the person that you're working with for sure. Probably a more intellectually informed description than mine. Mine is more to do with the heart and the gut. How does this affect me? How does this impact my understanding? What feels right to me, and what helps describe my experience when I dive into these pieces. So that's what's interesting to me.
It feels important.
It became important to me in spite of my thinking it wasn't. I had no idea it would become as important as it has. It now starts, as you had said earlier, Sherry, I saw it. Now it began to be more of a sense of, I get it. No, I get it. Obviously, I don't get it because you can hear my words. I cannot describe. But I'm getting the sense of pieces of this. So I know that something will become clearer for you as well. But I don't know what that clarity will be. It'll just get better.
This is helpful.
Good.
It feels clear. It feels
wow.
clear.
Okay, feeling clear is way more than I would have expected. All right, my friends. Nice to see you. Good luck out there. Enjoy the journey. There's lots.
Happy holidays.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Same to you all.
too.
Take care. Bye-bye.